what I'll call Operation Safety Now.
The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee will now begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee for October 8th, 2020. I am Philippe Cunningham and I am chair of this committee. As we begin, I will note for the record that this meeting has remote participation by members of the City Council and City staff as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Gordon?
Here.
Cano? Councilmember Ellison?
Present.
Palmisano?
Present.
Fletcher?
Here.
Chair Cunningham?
Present.
And Councilmember Cano? There are 5 members present at this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let the record reflect we have a quorum and can conduct the business of this committee. Colleagues, we have 8 items on today's agenda. I will begin today with item number 1, which is to receive public comments from the community regarding public safety issues. This public comment period was noticed at our last meeting. Staff has provided me with a list of speakers. We currently have 64 signed up to speak today. We will begin with those who had originally signed up to speak at our last meeting, and then I will proceed to the new registrants on the list. As is our typical practice, speakers will have 2 minutes each to present to the committee, and then the clerk will notify me when your time is up. You will be hearing a timer go off. So that will be the signal that the 2 minutes are up. Out of respect for the other 63 people signed up to speak and their time, please wrap up your sentence and let that be the end of your statement at the end of the 2 minutes. If you are unable to present all you would like to, please know that you can submit the rest of your statement to councilcomment@minneapolismn.gov. When you are called on to speak, please press *6 to unmute. Then wait a moment for a message that says you're unmuted. Then state your name for the record and make your comment. I will call on callers 10 at a time, so everyone is aware on what number we are. The first 10 on our list today are Bill Rodriguez, Lisa Byrne, Marjorie Hiropolis, I apologize for mispronouncing names, Brooke Calder, Kevinstorfer, Christine Benson, Karen Forbes, Janet Skidmore, John Farrell, and Jim Galvin. So that's our first 10. So to begin, again, press *6 to unmute. Wait a moment for the message that says you're unmuted and state your name for the record. First, I will call on Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez, the floor is yours for 2 minutes. You may need to press *6 to unmute yourself. All right, we will come back to Mr. Rodriguez. Next up, we have Lisa Byrne. Press *6 perhaps. All right, moving on to the third speaker signed up. We have Marjorie Hiropolis. Hiropolis.
Mr. Chair, this is Lene.
Yes.
I understand that certain callers are in the meeting and they are pressing *6 and it's not working for them.
Tech team, can we get some assistance with this? Because it seems that Mr. Rodriguez is on the call, so I want to be able to go back to him. Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano, for letting me know. All right, if everyone could please hold for one quick moment, we're going to, oh, actually, Mr. Rodriguez, can you please try to push *6 again? All right, tech team, it seems like we're having some issues. Also, for folks, if you please check to make sure that your phone is not muted. So you may have to unmute your phone before pushing *6 and also push *6. Tech team, can you please advise on the best way to be able to proceed, given it seems that we are having some technical difficulties?
Mr. Chair, this is Casey. I would just jump in here and say that as we're working with the first callers in line, obviously, to get them into queue and work with them to make sure that they're able to communicate. It may be possible to keep going down the line. One of those speakers may not have their phone device muted and they could actually get in. We can always come back to the top of that list and revisit that. But I think in the interest of time, pursuing the list as it is and seeing until we can get a speaker might be helpful. And the clerks and tech team will be working with the callers behind the scenes and will also help to identify those callers who had registered, who haven't yet spoken, so we can remind you to come back to them.
Great, thank you. So we are on caller number 4 that's signed up, Brooke Calder. Again, can you please push *6 and pause for the message letting you know that you're on mute and state your name for the record.
Hey guys, how are you?
Yay, welcome.
What's up? So if it's cool, I'll just go ahead.
Yep, 2 minutes is yours. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. All right, so I am Brooke Calder. I am a 20-year-long resident of Loring and Whittier neighborhoods, and our guard for almost a decade at the MIA, and for years I've been working downtown with you guys as your men's retail expert at Dayton's and Neiman Marcus. So that said, in 2012, coming from work, I was assaulted by gang members in front of City Center for my phone. I now live with permanent injuries and limited mobility as a result. So I hope that all of you will believe me when I tell you that crime in our city has been a problem for a long time. However, you all know, we all know that we have never seen anything like this. In my neighborhood, we feel unsafe in broad daylight. My friend was robbed of her keys and purse at work by a group of teenage girls a couple of weekends ago, and we all know about that. My Ethiopian neighbor was mugged at Nicollet and 26 for her purse, for which my friend had to chase these guys down and retrieve her bag, not to mention all the chaos that's been running rampant since George, who I actually knew from Conga, was killed. Many of us don't feel like, not you in particular, sir, but that you all aren't acting fast enough. But we know that you're overwhelmed. The issue is that we need solutions now, not in 3 months, not in 6 months, but now. So yes, retraining and ramping up MPD is great, but focus on more different groups working together. The groups of which I have in mind are the Office of Violence Prevention, led by Sasha Cotton, who seems to be doing a great job, given all the circumstances, and citizens groups like the NACP, Assembled Violence Interrupters, the Minnesota Freedom Fighters, Mad Dads, Neighborhood Watch, Protect Minnesota, and many other programs. These programs need to work together in a coordinated fashion, and it's near impossible given what we're faced with. So I would please urge you all to work faster, if we can afford it, to hire additional staff, and just
Thank you.
try to please foster solutions and connect more groups
Great.
to resolve this issue.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Much appreciate
Thank you for having us.
Of course, your willingness to share your story as well. I'm sorry to hear about that, and glad that you're still with us. Next up, we have speaker number 5, Kevinstorfer. Please push *6. Wait a second, and then state your name for the record, please. All right, not hearing Kevin. We'll move on to speaker number 6, Christine Benson.
Hear me?
Yes, we sure can. Welcome. If you could say your name for the record, and the
Hi,
2 minutes is yours.
My name is Christine Benson. I've lived in South Uptown now for 14 years now, going on 15. My experience has been pretty good, unlike the previous woman that was talked before. I actually used to walk and bike and run and drive, with ease, and progressively that's gotten worse over the years, but I've never felt scared in my life until this year. And I think for me, I would really like to see creative solutions from the city council. I feel like maybe there's a lack of transparency there, and I don't feel like some of my answers were that I got answers. So I would say that I can tell you recently I've been scared to walk alone by myself. I'm scared to run. I'm scared to even drive after dark, and I just everybody around me is moving out, which is hard to deal with. I would say only until recently I feel like I finally felt like I really don't feel like there's transparency, and we're not getting enough news sources. Like, I can only find it on Nextdoor, which also makes me scared. So I've actually had to turn off the news, but I just don't feel like there's enough being done. What I would like to see is more transparency from the city council on what are the future plans for the Minneapolis Police Department. And again, just like the previous woman, I would like to know, I would like to see action now. I'm looking for creative solutions, more transparency, and answers now. I think the other thing that I just wanted to mention was that I do know that the city council was meeting with the PCOC, and I want to know why they aren't, and if they aren't, who are they meeting with to get other opinions heard in the community, since I don't see Lisa Bender present in my community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Christine, for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.
Mr. Carl, did you want to speak?
Mr. Chair, if I could just weigh in, it might be a good time to try and go back to the top of the list, just as a reminder, and if so, I'll state here for all callers, the system is very sensitive, so we ask callers not to mute their devices. We will mute the device on our end, so if they have a device and they've muted it, please do not mute your phone. When the name is called, they should push *6 and wait a moment. Sometimes that message can take a minute to come into play, and so if they push *6 again, they're actually muting themselves again. So just push *6 once, wait for the message, and then hopefully we'll queue into the system. So I just wanted to remind people not to mute your device. Press *6 once, wait a minute, let the message play out, and then, as you've indicated, Mr. Chair, to state their name and offer their comments. So we can try that again. The tech team is standing by, of course, but I wanted to at least offer that at this initial standpoint before we went too far down the list.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carl. I very much so appreciate it. So we'll circle back. Hopefully we were able to iron out some of the challenges. So we'll move back up to speaker number 1, Bill Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez, if you're on the line, please push *6, wait a moment, and then introduce yourself, and the floor is yours for 2 minutes. Mr. Rodriguez, we see you're on the line, but maybe we're still having some issues. So we will try again here shortly. I'm sorry that it seems we're having some issues. Mr. Rodriguez, perhaps for you to log out of, is it possible, tech team, for him to log out and call back in? Okay,
Yes.
so Mr. Rodriguez, why don't we push a reset? So if you want to hang up and call back in, hopefully we'll be able to work out whatever technical difficulties we're having. I apologize for that. So we will try speaker number 2 again, Lisa Byrne. Okay. Marjorie. All right, we talked to Brooke. Kevinstorfer. All right, so now we are back to speaker number 7, Karen Forbes. Karen, if you're on the line, please push *6. Wait a moment, and then state your name for the record, please.
Yes, here I am. This is Karen.
Yay, welcome.
Okay, so I want to thank you all for having us today. That's wonderful. And hold on, let me bring up my little speech here. Okay. Okay, great. Again, thank you. I'm here as a resident who has lived in Minneapolis in the central neighborhood for 30 years. In that 30 years, I was a block leader for 15. In that 15 years, we had a relationship with the police and CCP Safe, which resulted in very little crime in our neighborhood. Shoot. We were a team and took advantage of the many programs that have since been cut in the budget. At that time, shots fired were rare. Now they are an everyday occurrence that has impacted me personally. My night was interrupted with 3 bullets coming into my living room, nearly missing my head. I have relived that night many times, hearing the sounds of the bullets hitting my radiator and drywall spraying everywhere. I'm telling you now because as traumatic as it was for me, it didn't make the news, as many violent crimes do not make the news. I wish I had the time to share even a week's worth of crimes that I'm sure have resulted in the PTSD that I am experiencing. Wake up and support Bill's Operation Safety Plan when he gets unmuted. I'm sure he will eventually. Because your plan, which has cost millions, seems like a sociology experiment that obviously doesn't work. And again, I thank you for listening to us today, and have a great day. I'm done.
Thank you, Karen. Great to have you here. Much appreciated. Speaker number 8, Janet Skidmore.
No, please get on, Shannon. I want to hear what your voice is.
It worked.
Hello.
Hi, is this Janet?
This is Janet. Am I
Hi.
just checking?
You
Hi,
are live. The 2 minutes are yours.
All right. Thanks for having us speak today, and I certainly hope that you get Bill because he's been the leader of this group. I'm just going to go ahead and say I am appalled that I was sent a phone number to call 2 weeks ago. I waited to speak on the phone for 1 hour, and then the public comment period was simply bypassed with no mention of it as if it were never on the agenda. And I feel like that is simply unacceptable. I get paid $30 per hour, and I lost that 2 weeks ago not to mention the minutes on my phone. This city council sets up their meetings in such a way as to discourage and even ban public input. Meetings are routinely held in the middle of the workday when many people are unable to take time off. My representative, Alondra Connell, has routinely refused to answer my emails and phone calls, even though I'm a block leader. And she has even gone so far as to block my emails. This is inexcusable. I'm a homeowner. I pay my property taxes every bit as much as the people in Kingfield and Nokomis do. So why are the drug dealers and pimps allowed to be in my area when they would not be tolerated in Kingfield and Nokomis? The city council works for me, not the other way around. Why isn't the council pressuring judges to stop releasing criminals into my neighborhood time and time again, so that the same dealers and prostitutes have been on Lake Street literally for years? Why do I have to spend my time going to crime meetings and working with crime groups? Why isn't the city council doing that? I've owned my home for 12 years and it has never been this bad. I no longer feel safe even going to my garage in the alley after dark. The recycling can wait until morning. I no longer use the Lake and Hiawatha transit station because I don't feel safe there. I've switched to 38th Street. Why does that area get to be safer? Even before the summer, response times for 911 got to be as long as 1.5 hours, and that is simply unacceptable, and I support Bill Rodriguez Operation Safety Now 100%. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Let us actually circle back, because I see that Mr. Rodriguez, I believe, is back in. So let's try that one more time. Mr. Rodriguez, if you want to unmute yourself, push *6, wait a moment, and then introduce yourself for the record.
All right.
We did it.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me now? This is Bill Rodriguez.
Yes, we can. Yay. Welcome. Glad we worked that out.
No problem. No problem. I was able to grab dinner and catch up on the news, so I'm okay in the time we had here. No, but seriously, thank you for having me on, sir. And my name is Bill Rodriguez. By the way, I don't live downtown, and I'm not white or wealthy, so I suspect that under Lisa Bender's definitions, it's okay for me to speak today. That's just an aside, but really, my 2-minute statement, here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a crisis. Crime is rampant with no end in sight, and we've never felt less safe. Meanwhile, there's no leadership, no communication, not enough cops on the street, and now the chief says that some 911 calls may soon go unattended, leaving us to fend for ourselves. This is crazy. You folks need to spend less time tearing down the police, which is making things worse, and more time working together on the #1 issue, our safety. A greater sense of urgency is needed before this crisis spirals out of control. Here are 2 ideas under what I'll call Operation Safety Now. First, you should work with others to immediately convene a leadership summit and create a 60-day emergency plan that puts more protection on our streets. We need a surge of uniformed law enforcement to back up our depleted police. Every option should be on the table. Federal resources, part-timers from neighboring cities, deeper involvement from partners like MTC and the Sheriff's Office, plus limited strategic use of the state's National Guard. This would free up more cops to catch the bad guys. Attendees should include, among others, the mayor, the chief, Governor Waltz, Commissioner Harrington, and a couple of you. Second, your plan needs to be paired with a communications campaign that keeps us informed of progress on a regular basis. Think of it like the COVID press conferences that the state holds regularly. A game-changing surge now. So, sir, if we don't act soon, here's what's going to happen. You'll be presiding over the biggest exodus of businesses and families that this town has ever seen, just when some of you are running for re-election next year. So please act now. Collaborate, create a plan, and communicate to keep us informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for being here today, and thank you for working through the technical difficulties. Your voice matters, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Next up, we have. Let's also circle back. It looks like we have Marjorie on the line. So Marjorie, if you want to push *6, wait for a moment for the message, and then say your name for the record. please do so. All right, we'll try Marjorie here in a little bit again. Next up, we have Jim Galvin. Jim, are you on the line?
I am, Council.
Welcome. Please state your name for the record, and the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Council. So I moved back here to Minnesota about 2.5 years ago, and in the Uptown area, I've lived here probably over a period of 10 years, rented all the way since early 2000s. So on July 19th, I came home and found a bullet round. It bounced around my house, and apparently there was a broad daylight shootout on 24th Street here, and just daily. I mean, daily there's shootings, there's people getting shot on Nicollet, like literally every single day. And in fact, North Minneapolis, a 7-year-old was just shot last night too as well. So, you know, I'm extremely concerned. I've lived in areas, you know, across the country, Washington, D.C. during the 90s, Adams, Morgan, you know, some real dicey neighborhoods, and never had a round enter my house before. I'm also a veteran. And, you know, when I spoke to my neighbor, they said the shootout was in broad daylight between two vehicles. We also have a lot of young children in the neighborhood. We have the Wardle School down the street too as well. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're all experiencing a lot of crime here that nobody's ever experienced. And I've never experienced this level of crime anywhere. I'd like to know what the council's plan is to bringing security back to everyone's neighborhood, not just my neighborhood. Everyone deserves to be secure in their house, on the streets, and not be afraid to go out. You know, I'm 235 pounds. Nobody really messes with me. I don't feel safe walking around my neighborhoods, and I don't go out late at night either. It's just asking for trouble. So, you know, thank you, Bill, for organizing that one message. And I just want to say, I support Bill Rodriguez, Operation Safety Now. What we are doing isn't working, and we need more urgent and drastic action now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Shannon McCormick.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you, Council. First, I want to say thank you for having us here today. I've been listening the whole time, Bill. That sounds like a really well thought out plan. I do support that. Just had a quick couple of things to say. First, I'm wondering if this next year's community engagement and research for the new policing model does not show support for this. Are you prepared to not move forward with this plan? Second, you've said previously that the police and other city departments were defunded due to COVID, but we're also down over 100 officers who have retired or left the force. Just wondering where those salaries went that are no longer being paid, and if that money has already gone to other things, is there some other areas we could pull funding from to get more police on the streets, even temporarily, to kind of curb this crime? In a previous meeting, you asked the chief what he's doing about this crime, but we would like to know, what are you doing to support the chief? Violence interrupters are, and the other programs that have been mentioned are great support, but criminals don't see them as a deterrent. They know that violence interrupters are not really an obstacle to stealing a car or stealing someone's purse. So we kind of need more of a visual police presence right now. So I'm wondering, why aren't we pulling resources from other sources to hire officers from other departments or the new cadet class some of those officers on the streets. I'm just wondering how many people have to be shot or robbed or carjacked before like real emergency action is taken. And again, thank you for having us here today, and that's all I have for you.
Right on the buzzer. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Next up, we have Melissa Bloom. If you push *6, just wait a moment and then state your name for the record.
This is Melissa Bloom, just making sure you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to say thanks for letting us all come on and speak our piece today. I am new to the Twin Cities area. I moved here from Fargo, North Dakota last year to start a business. September 4th, my husband and I were assaulted near the Twin Stadium. I had a broken nose. My husband received a laceration. He was hit with a pipe. It is never an area we used to come down here have for entertainment purposes, and we just enjoyed it so much that we decided to move to the area. We do live in downtown, and I no longer feel that way. We are in the process of looking for places outside of the Minneapolis area. Because of that exact reason, I have not been to work for over a month. My husband will be missing 2 months worth of work due to the severe concussions that we received during the attack. And then I also run vans for Amazon, and my Amazon driver was held by knife point yesterday, and his vehicle was taken. So it's really hard to say these are isolated incidents when I know several people that it's happened to so soon. I always thought I would be safe because I'm not one that causes problems. I don't say anything out of order. I don't behave in an inappropriate manner. Yet I just happen to be in a place that I wasn't wanted, I guess, and for absolutely no reason whatsoever. There was no rhyme or reason to it. And I think that there's a lot of people that are feeling that exact same way. And it's so disheartening to me because Minneapolis was such a great place. And we even have friends now that refuse to come down to visit us because they are afraid for themselves. I'm afraid to drive to work, and I'm afraid to leave my home. And no one, including all of you commissioners, deserve to feel that way. No one should feel unsafe going to work or outside of their home.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I wish you and your husband a speedy recovery, and I'm sorry to hear that happened. Thank you so much for being here today. Your voice matters in this discussion. Next up, we have George Saad. George, if you're on the line, please push *6. All right, we will come back to George. Next up, we have Jane Burge. Push *6, wait a moment, and then state your name for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, and who is this?
This is George Saad.
Hi, George. Welcome. Thank you so much. You have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you. For the record, my name is George Saad. I'm a resident of Ward 10. I'm an immigrant. I'm a child of war. I'm minority. I chose this city and Ward 10 in particular 16 years ago. And I did so because of its rich diversity. I invested my life, my savings into grounding my roots here. And my fellow Minneapolis residents and I elected our councilors to serve us, to build a better city for all of us. Since the unjustified and unfortunate death of George Floyd, The city council has engaged in rhetoric that has emboldened criminals, the proof of which is in the unprecedented spike in crime and recklessness over the past 4 months. Through ongoing irresponsible rhetoric, city council members, you, have endangered us, our homes, and our businesses. My city has become so dangerous, like the previous speakers have testified, for me to walk or to even drive around. Brazen criminals now lurk in broad daylight, knowing that the city's council, the city's own leadership, through its anti-law enforcement and anti-safety rhetoric, is giving them opportunities to terrorize the community with more ease than at any time before. Gunshots are a nightly occurrence now. You guys have had years to address any cultural problems within the Minneapolis Police Department. You have failed to do so. Instead, you embark on a campaign against your own police department, fighting and demonizing an entire internal city organization instead of effectively making it better. The city council has failed me. It has failed my neighbors. It has failed the city. You need to hold yourselves accountable. Shame on you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saad, for being here. Next up, we have Jane Berg.
This is Marjorie.
Oh, hello, welcome. We'll go ahead and come to you now. If you'll state your name for the record, and the floor is yours for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, is this Marjorie? Oh, we just...
Yeah.
Yes, hello. Who is on?
Trying to get in.
Is this Marjorie?
It is.
Hi, welcome. Sorry for any technical difficulties that you experienced. I'm glad we were able to work those out. Welcome, and you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I've been a resident of the city for 20 years. I moved here from Shoreview. I'm now retired. I loved Minneapolis when I first moved here. I've loved it since I've been here until the last year, maybe 2 years even, but it's really been this last year has been the worst. And the truth is, I used to worry when I heard sirens in my neighborhood, and now I feel better because I think something's happening. They're taking care of something. I don't know. And I can repeat everything everybody else has said, but I can tell you that I am just totally, I'm up to this. Everybody feels the same way. We all want to move, and we're being overtaxed and underserved. And the answer is not to disband the police. We don't believe that either. We also believe that George Floyd should not be dead right now. It's just we're all in that same place. The police could do an analysis. I know they have data. You could do an analysis. Instead, there's nothing. I hear the word engagement, and I don't even have a clue what that means, because how can you engage a community that's afraid to even go out at night? Not because of the pandemic, but because of the crime. And people's purses being snatched, people being robbed at gunpoint. It's just unacceptable, totally unacceptable. I also support Bill Rodriguez's Operation Safety Now. I'll do anything I can do now that I'm retired. I can't even go to my hairdresser because it's closed down because of this. It's just too much. I moved from Shoreview. I thought I was coming to a better place. So that's about all. I can repeat everything everybody else has said, but I feel exactly the same way, and I feel so badly for anybody who's been actually a victim of this. And I'm afraid to put that.
Thank you for being here. Much appreciated. Your voice matters in this discussion, so thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to work out those technical difficulties. I'll try Jane Berg one more time. All right, so now instead of 10, I'll go through the next 5 names so folks are ready. We have Rick Klossner, Elizabeth Lindsay, Sophie Dolan, Emily Collins, Brandi Bennett, and Maureen Foley. So next up, we have Rick Klossner. If you'll please unmute yourself, sit and state your name for the record.
Hey, this is Rick Klossner. Can everybody hear me?
We sure can. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. So I live in the 48th and Chicago neighborhood. I've been here for 11 years now. And, you know, maybe many of you have heard about what's going on in that neighborhood, but a lot of the small businesses have been targeted by crime. Like the Pizza Hut was robbed at gunpoint. You know, there was a younger adult working there, and he was traumatized, and he ended up quitting his job. The lady that was operating 14 Hill was also robbed in Bubbly Paws, and there was another building that was slammed into from a car coming down Chicago Avenue driving over 70 miles an hour in the middle of the night, and it totally wrecked 2 stores. You know, there have been home intrusions. Elderly and seniors have been targeted in these home intrusions. Women just walking around have been having their purses stolen. Carjackings, car break-ins, catalytic converter thefts. You know, pretty much every time I log on to social media, it seems like something new is happening in my neighborhood. And so I just felt compelled to come here and speak up for those victims today, because we should not be sitting back and allowing this to happen. The longer we sit back, the more emboldened the criminals are going to become every day. And also, I feel like we're sending a message to out-of-town criminals that, hey, you can come to Minneapolis and get away with this. And I just think that's where stuff really gets out of hand. So I just wanted to advocate that, you know, I understand what's happening with the long-term police reforms, but I really think that we need some sort of short-term plan to fight what is going on right now. And I also have been speaking with one of my neighbors, Bill Rodriguez, and I support, you know, at least he has some ideas on what we should be doing. And I really encourage the city council and the mayor to step up and come up with some sort of short-term plan that can get us out of this crisis. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Elizabeth Lindsay.
Hello, Council. Thank you for this session. I'm in Ward 12, and I've been here a few years, long enough to witness the dramatic uptick in crime, from petty property crime and broken windows to carjacks at gunpoint. My questions are about staffing, the city charter, and whether or not you are still receiving private security when obviously the constituency are generally afraid. September 15th, Chief Arundanda said there were 535 sworn patrol staff and 438 patrol officers for our city of almost 500,000 people. If that's still accurate, we're in violation of the city charter right now. My question is, does that trigger any kind of hiring wave? Because it's also my understanding as of October 5th, per McGinty, Inspector McGinty, that all incoming cadet classes have been canceled. There were 3 on deck, a class the most diverse we've ever had. It was partway through their training, and they have since been disbanded to other forces. They've taken other jobs. And it's also worth asking, would that incoming class have gotten the most up-to-date training, the most sensitive and applicable training for a city as complicated as ours? Those are my questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will just say, due to the nature of public hearings and public comment periods like this, that we as a council, we're receiving the comments, so it's not necessarily a back and forth, but I do recommend for you to contact your council member to be able to engage more thoroughly in that dialogue. Thank you. Next up, we have Brandi Bennett.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Council members, my name is Brandi Bennett, and I live in Loring Park. We learned in kindergarten that words matter. We should all know as adults that words such as defund, dismantle, and abolish have severe consequences. We are a city in crisis and need action now. The mayor has budgeted for 3 academy classes in 2021. If those jobs are posted today, it takes 18 to 24 months before officers are hired, finish training, and hit the streets. We cannot wait until 2022, and it is not sustainable to rely on the National Guard, unarmed citizen patrols, or the goodwill of outside agencies. Our city is failing epically at one of the 6 pillars of 21st century policing, that is officer safety and wellness. We are putting citizens and officers at risk, working with a demoralized and burned out patrol staff that is down to 450 for a city of 437,000. First, the city needs to stop incentivizing officers to leave and instead incentivize them to stay. Second, just like Target hires seasonal workers for the holidays, I propose the city hire temporary part-time officers to patrol Minneapolis. This is not reinventing the wheel, as Metro Transit and the U of M have been doing this for years. These would be post-board licensed officers that are already trained by their home agency. Pay them a competitive $40 an hour wage, have them attend a 1-week hybrid academy to learn MPD basics. Part-time officers would partner with MPD officers for on-the-job training. It would provide immediate boots on the ground and save the city money in overtime costs and benefits, as the city would not pay health insurance or into a pension plan. This is not a long-term solution, but an emergency Band-Aid. This plan will require negotiation between the city leaders and police union. I recommend Ms. Palmisano and Ms. Goodman, as they are both respected and pragmatic. Draft a memorandum of understanding that allows for the immediate hiring of these part-time officers and lift the freeze so MPD can build toward its authorized force of 888. Please set your egos and agendas aside, as the future of Minneapolis depends on it. I support Bill Rodriguez's Operation Safety Now. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time today to be a part of this conversation. Next up on the line, we have Ed Feline. Ed, if you're on the line, please push *6, wait for a moment, and then state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Ed Feline. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Welcome.
Thank you. There are some very simple things that this council, working with the mayor, and could do right now to improve the efficiency and restore public confidence in the Minneapolis Police Department. First, return to the one-person patrols originally instituted 40 years ago by Chief Tony Boza. This would double the officers on the street responding to 911 calls. If there's a danger to the officer and a potential for violence, the officer should immediately call for backup and secure the perimeter. Second, stop the feather bedding promotions. Almost the first thing Chief Arredondo did when he became chief was to promote 20 of his friends. This takes officers off the street, increases the bureaucracy, reduces accountability, and costs the taxpayers millions of dollars. Third, when an officer kills someone, they must be given the same rights as any other citizen, but they must not be given special privileges. When other officers arrive on the scene to investigate, they should immediately separate the officer from their partner and ask for a statement. The officer should be allowed to speak with an attorney, but they should remain in custody and isolation until they give their statement. When Dustin Schwartz and Mark Ringenberg killed Jamar Clark, they were put together in the back of a squad car for an hour, taken downtown and released, and then given 72 hours to make a statement. This kind of special treatment destroys public credibility in the police. Fourth, the people of Minneapolis deserve to know what happened to Terrence Franklin. On April 29th of this year, the city paid out $1 million in lawyers' fees and awards to Franklin's family by refusing to answer their wrongful death suit. The city couldn't answer the suit in court because the officer's statements were obvious falsehoods and fantasies. Shouldn't your committee investigate the facts in this killing?
Thank you.
And shouldn't the officers be responsible? I'm sorry. You can find the rest of it in Southside Pride next week. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Next up, we have Tracy Nicholson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Tracy Nicholson, and I'm here to show my support to the Minneapolis Police Department. I do not want the Minneapolis Police Department defunded. I read an article that there needs to be a minimum of 700 police to keep the city the size of Minneapolis safe. At the time of this article, Minneapolis had approximately 500 police. I'm not the only person to notice there are not enough police present in this city. The criminals have noticed too. It is well documented that crime has risen greatly this summer. Murders, shootings, carjackings, personal assaults, home break-ins, and catalytic converters removed from parked cars. And the most disturbing criminal trend that has appeared this summer is home break-ins at all times of the day with people still in their homes. So what can I do about this situation? I thought about 3 things I can do. First, I could move out of the city. With all the for sale signs in my neighborhood, I'm not the only person who thinks Minneapolis is no longer safe. Second, I have done training to get a conceal and carry permit. At the end of August, I called the sheriff's office to get an appointment to turn in my paperwork. The first available appointment date was December 2nd. So that tells me there are many people in Minneapolis that they feel the need to protect themselves and are getting a conceal and carry permit. The third thing I can do is I need to reside in Minneapolis to complete. This is next year. When the city council is up for re-election, I can vote you out. I hold the city council personally responsible for every murder, shooting, break-in, and any criminal act that has happened this summer. Your lack of leadership and bad decision is the cause of the current unsafe state of Minneapolis. For some reason, you have forgotten, and I want to make this perfectly clear to you. Police are good and criminals are bad. We need more funding to increase the police over 700 positions so there is a chance to take the city away from the criminals. I read that the people on the city council make $100,000 a year. I say defund the city council. With that money, we could hire more police, or you could put it in the general fund, and maybe I could get a few dollars taken off my property taxes. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope you have a good day. And no one tries to assault you, hijack your car, shoot at you, or break into your home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to circle back because I think that Jane Bergberg, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly, is on the line. So Jane, if you're here, if you'll push *6, wait for a moment for the message, and then state your name for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. This is Jane Berge, and I'm just going to say my husband and I have been longtime residents of the city of Minneapolis. He for almost 70 years, and me for over 50 years. We are very committed to this city. As you know, conversations around the work of re-imaging public safety have occurred in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. We have seen a dramatic increase in violent crime as described by so many other callers. You know, for us, the impact has been this. A young friend of our family was shot, thankfully not killed, during a carjacking in the Lynn Lake area. I am afraid to take my early morning walk due to increased crime in our area, and I'm reluctant to shop in Uptown, which has never occurred before. But you know what? This is nothing compared to what our neighbors on the north side are experiencing. And this was described very eloquently in an August 24th op-ed by Don Samuels. And this is what I would like to see, my husband and I would like to see. Radical police reform with all citizens treated as fully human. We acknowledge there are issues in the Minneapolis Police Department. We don't want to see no reduction in the police force. We really see this as being a both and versus an either or approach to going forward. And we want an acknowledgement that the defunding the police verbiage really has resulted in a negative impact on the current police force and may have emboldened criminals. Really, we need adequate police staffing and also strategies to encourage police to reside in the city that employs them. We also think it's a good idea to require officers to perform non-police community service as a part of their job responsibilities to encourage positive community relations. Really, we are in a situation where the house is on fire. And so talking about remodeling that house in the terms of, the plans is not appropriate at this time until the fire is put out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So just so folks know, we are on number 40 right now, based on the folks who are online, who are on the call, excuse me. So speaker number 40 is John Bedard. John, if you're on the line, please push *6 and wait a moment and then state your name for the record, please. All right, we will circle back to John. Next up, we have Victor Martinez. Victor, if you'll push *6 and state your name for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Awesome. I'm kind of surprised. I think I'm the first Northsider calling in, and I think that the rest of the city is finally seeing what's been going on in our neighborhood, in our backyard. My name is Victor Martinez. I'm a local pastor in North Minneapolis. I have lived here for about 17 years now, and have worked with troubled youth for decades. I live in Ward 5. I am concerned a little bit of for Sasha Cohen, that she's been given a large task, but with little to no resources to her. That it's actually going to take us anywhere in a good amount of time. Also, I know the city has a youth advisory committee. Half the deaths, murders in Minneapolis are teenagers, and our youth are not being engaged at all. The youth advisory committee hasn't met in about 6 months. One of the biggest crime issues happening now is with youth that get slapped in the hand when they steal a car. And I think I brought this up to you, Philippe, that there needs to be a plan and work with this, because just 3 days ago, 3 kids, 2 15-year-olds and a 13-year-old were killed in a high-speed crash. Exactly what we're trying to address, and I would love to see of a plan with that. Also, my last thing here is, bless you. My last thing here is really just transparency with meetings. I know the meeting on June 7th was against the Minnesota statute 13D, when boards have to meet in public to protect the rest of the citizens from showing their interest in meetings. And obviously, hopefully we learn from that, but I want to see more transparency when you as a council member are talking to other council members about what you're going to do. I want to see more transparency, more information. So I definitely, first time I heard the Operation Safety Now, and I love it. And I think that it's important for there to be regular updates to the citizens to know that something is moving forward. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for being here, and thanks for being a Northsider and making sure that we're represented in this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kelly Doran.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we sure
Can you hear
can.
me?
Thank you. Yes, we can. Welcome.
My name is Kelly Dorn. I am a lifelong resident of Minneapolis, graduate of Minneapolis Public Schools, live in the city, and I'm an investor in the city. To give you some recent statistics, since June 1st, in one of the buildings we own, 338-unit apartment building, we've had 10 break-ins in our garage with car windows broken and cars vandalized. We've had 40 bicycles stolen out of the buildings, 1 motorcycle. We've had 6 visitors who just hang out in our lobby and will not leave. Police will not respond to any of those. Police will not come and take a report on any of those. We also had 1 motorcycle stolen. Other buildings in the area are seeing similar problems. The bike theft ring is an organized event. They are stealing high-end bikes. Each of those bikes average in value of over $1,000. They're not stealing your everyday Schwinn. They're stealing the high-end bikes. Statistics that you're hearing from the Minneapolis police, I think, are greatly slanted because people are not reporting crimes, because the police will not come and take reports, and they can't figure out, or they are unwilling to do it on over the website. When crime started earlier this summer, it was mainly at night. Now it's all the time. It's during the day. They're not even trying to disguise themselves. We have videotape of them, and the police still won't do anything with the videotape. So we have a significant problem, a very significant problem with crime. It is stopping investment. I will no longer invest in the city of Minneapolis. I gave personally $100,000 to the Minneapolis Police Department to buy Narcan so that people's lives could be saved. And now the Minneapolis police is not even able to utilize that because they're attacked when they show up at a crime scene. The next election, many of you will be voted out of office. I think some of you should consider resigning ahead of that election so that we can appoint new leadership that will lead the city in a safe manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kelly Doran was number 55, so on our list. Next up, we have on the line Susan Goldstein. Susan, I think you may have.
Thank you, Chairman.
There we go. Hello, welcome.
And thank you, City Council, for this opportunity to comment. I won't add on to everything you've heard, although I very well could, with an at gunpoint carjacking in front of my building here in Ward 10 in the Echo neighborhood, period. Just like everybody else has said, we're very afraid to be outside of our homes because now the crime is occurring in daylight, not only nighttime and overnight. My question to you, and I understand this is not a back and forth, but is it possible, please, for the City Council to address all these comments also in a public forum? We oftentimes have a chance for a public hearing or public comment period. We send in comments. We're told to contact our City Council member. Sometimes those City Council members are not responding. And I would really like to see the whole City Council look at all these comments that people are making and reply publicly to the City of Minneapolis and its citizens who actually employ you, City Council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, we are on number 57, Chuck Turchick. Welcome. Please push *6, wait a moment, and then state your name for the record.
Am I here?
You are here. Welcome, Mr. Turchick.
Chuck Turchick. Some of you are probably doing your email, but I'll make my comment anyhow. I have a comment about the George Floyd Memorial. The real memorial is in your hands, and it will cost almost nothing. And that has to do with what you should do, not with what the city should build. And what you ought to do as a memorial to George Floyd is to begin to ask how to prevent those tragedies from continuing to happen. What are the lessons to be learned from the killing of David Smith and Justine Damon and Terrence Franklin and Jamar Clark and George Floyd? Answers so far have either been, well, it's racism, a too vague and general answer, or let's ban chokeholds, or let's decrease the chief's decision-making time on issuing discipline from 45 days to 30 days. Specific answers that I think don't really address the problem. On July 17th, Councilmember Gordon finally asked, why don't we try to figure out what were the lessons learned from previous killings? That was almost 3 months ago, and nothing has been done about answering that question yet. Once again, it's been dropped. There could be no greater memorial to George Floyd than to look at the causes of these tragedies, to take a deep dive, as the chief says. But you're not going to do this. You never have. Your memorial is going to be some rhetoric about racism or cutting the chief's decision-making time. That's going to prevent immediate and irreparable harm, as the TRO claimed, and then you'll do whatever a court ultimately tells you to do. If that's your memorial, none of you should run for office next year, or if you do, you should be soundly defeated. What you build on 38th in Chicago may soothe some people in the community, but it won't solve anything. The solutions are in your hands, but you're unwilling or unable either to see that or to do anything about it. And until you open your eyes, until you ask the right questions, you won't see what kind of memorial to George Floyd is truly needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Turchik. We're going to circle back to number 54, Al Geeson. Al, if you're on the line, please push *6, wait a moment, and then introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Al Geeson. I'm in Ward 11, have lived here for 35 years. And I will say that never have I or my neighbors had a concern for our safety. That is until that changed by your emotional and not rational response to support the Defund pledge. You need to take quick action now to reduce rising crime and not defund the police. As for your public safety plan that you've submitted, council has approved, we were promised 12 months of community engagement to figure out how this might be done well. Your plan ends in July, that gives us 9 months. In reality, though, we only have 2 months because that happens between now and December when you draft the vision. And your staff has already been working on this for 3 months already, so how much input will we actually have? Phase 2 of your plan is to review and confirm. That's your own words in the statement for the plan. And so how much change can we then provide? Phase 3 is feedback on the plan that will be already baked in. And that reminds me of the 2040 when nobody on the council was listening to the community. So I suggest that there's much that can be done in a short period of time to make the citizens safe. I've never seen it like this, and I hope to never see it again. And by this time next year, I hope we have a number of new candidates for city council that can make the changes required to make our city livable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geeson. Next up, we have number 58, Holly Morrill.
Hello.
I
This
don't.
is Holly Morrell.
Yes, hi, Holly.
I would like to pass my time. Somebody got missed. His name is Jake. He was in the 29, I think, slot, but I'd like him to have my time, please.
Actually, you don't have to forfeit your time. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Let me see here. Jake Raber, if you are on the line, thank you for bringing this to my attention. If you are on the line, please push *6. Wait for a moment and for the message that says you're unmuted, and then state your name for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. My sincerest apologies.
My name's Jake Raber. I live in Ward 11, Jeremy Schroeder's ward. I'm here to talk about how the recent increase in crime has impacted me, and in relation, how it impacts a small business and your tax dollars to do more of what you want to protect us. I've worked downtown for 25 plus years. I've done a large majority of my business downtown. However, with the increase in crime downtown, I simply no longer feel safe. I was accosted getting off a bus at 6:30 in the morning. I have never felt unsafe walking downtown at any time during the day or night. I used to walk between the saloon and the 90s at 2 o'clock in the morning, never had a problem. I've changed the following from downtown now. I no longer have a doctor downtown, a dentist, an optometrist, or my hairstylist. I switched all those to new people in the city of Richfield. Not only does this impact these independently owned offices in downtown, it impacts your tax base that you're receiving. I've always enjoyed happy hours and dining downtown. No longer. I refuse to set foot in the downtown Target. I don't have to explain why. And now I do all my shopping exclusively at the Richfield Target. Again, these are your tax dollars going down the drain. Regarding my neighborhood, with increased crime and activity around 48th and Chicago, I no longer feel safe going to that area. I've chosen a veterinarian for my cat outside of Minneapolis instead of the one on 48th. I no longer go to Turtle Bread. I no longer go to Common Grounds. I no longer go to Town Out Tap. These are small businesses losing my money, and your tax dollars are going down the drain. There was a shooting at the gas station at 60th and Portland. My partner was there 5 minutes before. We're ready to pack up and move. We demand safety now.
Thank you. My apologies again for missing you on the list. We actually, we also have someone else who popped up. We have next on the list, Amity Foster, and then we will come back to Holly. So Amity, if you, I'm sorry, yeah. Yes, if you'll please unmute yourself. And unmute yourself, wait a second for the comment or the message, and then state your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Amity Foster, and I live in Ward 3, specifically the Sheridan neighborhood. I would like to urge the City Council to not let the failure of the Charter Commission be a barrier to reimagining safety in our city. Police have proven that they are not the answer to safety and are, in fact, in active danger, either directly or by not responding in a timely manner. It is clear that the system we have right now is not working, and we need to continue to engage with each other, with our communities, to create a future of public safety that actually means safety for all, instead of a system that only reacts to some things in some communities. This is hard work, to really engage in what it means to redefine safety and create the structures to provide it. Some of this has already started, and we need to continue doing that. And I just want to say, I do feel safe in Minneapolis. I have lived here, I think, about 20 years, and that has never really changed. Some of that may be naivety, but what does make me feel unsafe is worrying about what could happen to my husband, who is a Black man, and other Black and brown people that I care about, and the community as whole. It is striking that we are talking about public safety, and it is about property and about individuals and not about the collective. In order to really reimagine safety, we need to start to come up with collective solutions. Some of that is already happening. I think the violence interrupters, the Office of Violence Prevention, and I urge the council and everybody listening and on the call to really continue to have those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we're circling back to Holly. Holly Morrill, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. Welcome back. Holly, are you still here? Push *6. We may have lost her, unfortunately, but we'll try. We'll circle back. Next up, we have Aaron Hart. Aaron, if you will please push *6, wait for the message that says you're unmuted, and then state your name for the record.
All right, this is Aaron Hart. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Erin Hart. I live in the Field neighborhood. I apologize for the background noise. I'm trying to entertain my infant son. I wanted to join the call today because I've been extremely concerned about the serious uptick in crime recently across the city. I think others have said it. We're just starting to feel down in South Minneapolis what a lot of people in North Minneapolis have been enduring for a long time. And they have, in North Minneapolis, have borne the brunt of the increase in crime recently, but it's felt across the city. I think we've seen that the calls to defund the police and the subsequent lack of presence has led to a huge increase in violent crimes. I am sick of hearing about kids being shot or killed, elderly residents being beaten and robbed, people being charged money to leave their homes, sexual predators assaulting women on the street along Minnehaha Creek. The list is endless, not to mention the insane number of auto thefts, cars racing through the cities, and nonviolent crimes. I'm really concerned that there's a lack of leadership from the mayor or city council. Just berating the police chief to do more with officers and less budget is not providing the leadership we need right now. Clearly, police reform is needed, as we've seen, but just cutting funding to the police department isn't solving anything. The mayor is proposing further cuts to police funding for next year, saying that wait times may increase, and that's just unacceptable. That's not leadership. I moved to this city hoping to raise my son. I've loved this city. I think it could be an amazing place again, but right now, I'm scared to go out walking with my infant child or driving. So please, I ask for a serious, realistic plan from the city council, the mayor, and the police chief. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to circle back here because it would appear that John Bedard is on the line. So John, if you will unmute yourself by pushing *6, wait a moment for the message, and then introduce yourself for the record. All right, well, we'll try John here again shortly. Next up, we are at number 61, Matt Ryan. Matt, if you're on the line, please push *6.
Hello.
Hello, who is this?
This is Matt Ryan.
Hi, Matt. Welcome. Thank you so much. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Matt Ryan. I've lived in the Standish neighborhood in South Minneapolis for 15 years. I want to voice my support for changes to our city's crime reduction efforts in ways that allow everyone to feel safe in this city. I've seen efforts to reduce the disproportionate harms caused to people of color by our police department. And I've seen how rather than engaging constructively in these efforts, the MPD, or more often the police union, has consistently blocked them. And now it feels like we're being blackmailed to stop this conversation by an intentional lack of response by our police. Much of the work that police do could be more effectively, safely, and equitably done by other trained professionals and community groups. According to reporting by the Marshall Project, alternative programs like this have been shown to work and to create a safer community than traditional policing-centric approaches to public safety. These can also free traditional police resources to focus on the work they do best. I want to urge the council to move forward with efforts along these lines without waiting for police funding questions and city charter questions to be resolved. Now, according to the Star Tribune, violent crime rates are up 17%. While this is concerning, it's not higher than when I moved to Minneapolis in the late 90s, and I've seen no strong evidence that this is due to changes in policing. In fact, there's evidence that nationwide, the rate of reporting of violent crime has increased at a much greater rate than the actual crime rate has increased since George Floyd was killed. I believe crime itself is driven to a much greater degree by economics than by political rhetoric. Given that we're in the middle of an economic crisis, it seems unlikely that this crime increase is due to political conversations around policing. In fact, that this increase has incurred may illustrate the limits of a public safety model that relies too heavily on the police. I don't believe that departing from the status quo invites anarchy. I would say that the status quo is what has caused many of the problems we see in our city. We need to make meaningful change to have a city in which everyone feels themselves to be full and equal citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Much appreciated for you to be here today. Last on our list that we have identified by the numbers that were registered, the phone numbers that were registered, is Brandon Bergberg. Brandon, if you're on the line, if you'll please push *6, wait a minute, and then wait a moment for the message, and then state your name for the record.
Hi, I think I'm in. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Brandon Bergberg, and I appreciate the chance to testify today. And I just want to say thank you to the council. We're all aware of the long-term violence and crime prevention strategies that have been unfolding, like the Office of Violence Prevention and the Violence Interrupters and the Vision Zero Task Force. I think these are great mid to long-term strategies, and I agree they're going to provide results within the coming years. I think we need metrics at the forefront to know if they're working as intended, and I'll look forward to seeing those. But my question is, I want to know what, like a lot of the speakers today, what's being done now, today, to stop the violence and illegal behavior that we're seeing on our streets. It unfolds daily. There have been hundreds of shots where people have been hit by gunfire, violence, knives. There's 65 murders and counting. We're in record territory. So the question is, what is being done for the short term, today, tomorrow, next week? What is your immediate plan? And I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to look for each of you to put this in your media update over the next week. I think we as a community need to see what is your immediate plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon. Next up, I want to circle back to John Bedard to see, because I've been notified he's on the line. So John, if you're on the line, please push *6. All right. It would seem that maybe either he's having some technical difficulties. Oh, hello? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Excuse me, Counselor?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Heather Magnuson. I was number 47 on the list, and I think somehow my number isn't being recognized. So I just wanted to know if I could have the opportunity to speak.
Yes, of course. Welcome, Heather. And we will go through, I will go down the list of numbers that are still on the line, just for other folks to, no, just so other folks know. So, so welcome, thank you, and the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Again, my name is Heather Magnuson, and I have been a Minneapolis resident for 17 years, and I've generally felt very safe in my South Minneapolis, Northrop neighborhood up until recently. It's really become blatantly obvious that the Minneapolis Police Department does not have enough officers to appropriately respond to 911 calls, and I'm respectfully asking that you consider more funding to address the significant increase in crime. None of us want the Derek Chavons of the world as part of the Minneapolis Police Department, but I do believe that we still do have some good officers left who need to be valued by the council. In the past 6 months, I just want to give you an idea of some of the things that I have personally experienced. I experienced an attempted break-in of my home at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon in July while my family was home, and my 12-year-old daughter sat right next to the door making eye contact with the woman who was trying to pry our door open. I've watched individuals walk down our street, enter my neighbors' vehicles to steal things, even though there were pedestrians and bicyclists going by at the time. My husband interrupted the theft of a catalytic converter on another neighbor's car. I had another neighbor whose home was burglarized where the suspects walked in, got away with laptops, purses, keys, and their vehicle. I've watched vehicles speeding on the wrong side of the road to overtake other vehicles, and a motorcycle just a few days ago speed into the wrong lane and almost strike a mother and her young daughter as they tried to lawfully cross the road in a crosswalk. My 12-year-old biked over to a friend's house. We found out later that her friend's neighbor's house had been shot at about 30 minutes before my child biked over, and there were bullet holes in the house. I've never experienced any of these things before this year, and we're to the point where we're scared to walk our dog at night or let our 12-year-old have the independence that she deserves. I've been writing to my council representative, Jeremy Schroeder, since October 2019 to ask the council to support the police chief and his efforts to keep this city safe by providing adequate funding and training to ensure we have adequately trained officers. But I've received deflective answers and no sense of urgency to address the crime wave. I'm asking that you consider these things and that you support Bill Rodriguez's plan for safety now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to go ahead and go down the list of the numbers that we have that are still on the call. If you have already spoken, just go ahead and you don't have to respond or anything. I'll just take the silence as you've already spoken. So the number, so we're going to start off with the number ending in 5742. All right, we will move on now to 4278, the phone number ending in 4278. All right, 3194, 3194. Next up, we have 1542.
Hello?
Number and
yes.
Yes.
Can you hear
Hello.
me?
Yes, we can. Welcome. What's your name?
Okay,
If you could state your name.
Yes, John Bedard.
Oh, welcome. Welcome, Mr.
Yes.
Bedard. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. We have lived in Minneapolis well over 50 years. I've been one of the biggest boosters of Minneapolis, a big booster of downtown Minneapolis. That has all changed in the last year. Minneapolis now seems to have a culture that criminal behavior is okay. As a result, there's a growing feeling that our city leadership is not concerned with the safety of its citizens. The police at this time can only respond to crimes after they happen. Independent of any long-range plan the city leadership is working on, the mayor and council immediately have to make it very clear by its words and by its actions that criminal behavior is not okay and will not be tolerated in Minneapolis. The situation needs immediate action before it gets even worse. And as people have mentioned, when people don't feel safe in Minneapolis, they will take their business elsewhere. That means Minneapolis will lose tax dollars and their budget problems will get even worse. And I just want to conclude by saying I also want to support Bill Rodriguez's Operation Safety Now. What we're doing right now isn't working. We need more urgent and drastic action even before we take long-term action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bedard. The next phone number that we have on our list ends in 2475. If you haven't spoken yet, please push *6. Wait a moment and then introduce yourself for the record. All right, we have 3099, a phone number ending in 3099. Just as a reminder to folks, push *6 to unmute yourself. Phone number ending in 0195. 0195. Okay, phone number ending in 1550. Next up is 8901.
Hi, this is Karen Winkler, phone number ending 1550.
Hi, Karen. Welcome.
Hi,
You have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
2 minutes. Thank you. I've lived in Minneapolis for 31 years, and I have never seen the crime this bad. Like everyone else says, I'm afraid to walk anymore, and with COVID, that was just about the only thing I could do to relieve stress and get up out of my chair because I work from home like most people do. the crime bill or the crime plan that people are talking about, it needs to be more immediate and better thought out, and take the people who are on this call seriously, because we live here and a lot of people are planning on not living here anymore and leaving the city. I think it's time to take these problems seriously and focus on solving these problems before we focus on the 2040 plan that so many people don't want. Can we just wait on screwing up other stuff until we fix this issue? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have 8901. Okay, next phone number is ending in 7246. 0098. Okay. 5108. We have 6054 and 9802. Is there anybody who is on the call that would like to speak that I have not called on? All right, not hearing anyone else. I will now close the public hearing, or excuse me, the public comment. Do we have someone who has just?
Hello. Yes, I hit star 6. Sorry.
Nope, that's okay. Hi. We'll go ahead and let you have one comment, and then we will officially close it. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Yep. My name's Daniel Magnuson, resident, Northrop neighborhood. I had written my comments. I had actually constructed my responses as questions, and I understand this is just leaving a comment. So I'm going to do my best to kind of turn this around a little bit as I present it. We had a meeting where we had some Q&A with Lieutenant McGinty from the 3rd Precinct. And my question I'm really kind of wondering, and this I'll just put it out there, is the intel from next door useful to MPD? I'm curious if there's a better way to organize the intel, or a better way to share the intel from next door in a meaningful way that would translate into an effective strategy for cops on the street. I'm feeling like people on Nextdoor are hearing and seeing things, gathering information and photos and connecting the dots, but we as citizens do not really know how to get this information or to the police officers in a timely manner in order for it to make a difference or to be effective in preventing or interrupting crime. So I'm just asking the City Council to examine that, if there's a better way out there. Maybe there's some software that might categorize the intel and sort it by zones or areas within the city. My second thought is if we need to look at private security, considering, maybe the city divides each neighborhood into smaller zones of a few blocks, and each zone where the majority vote yes to have private security, those residents would have an assessment to their property tax to get a patrol in their zone. I'm, just feeling like there is a lot of residents that would be okay with that idea as a temporary solution, just to feel like there's more safety patrols. So that's it. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. With that, I will now close the public hearing. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to make your voice heard in this discussion. So now I will close the public hearing. Excuse me, public comment period. So colleagues, next we will move to the consent agenda, which includes items 2 through 6 on the agenda. Number 2 is authorizing a contract with the University of Minnesota Veterinary Medical Clinic in the amount of $80,000 for 2 years, and using the contract form provided by the Regents of the University of Minnesota for veterinary services for police canines. Item number 3 is accepting a grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency in the amount of $13,125 to plant at least 75 trees on private property in North Minneapolis from October 2020 through June 2023. Item number 4 is accepting a grant from the Youth Prize Foundation in the amount of $65,000 for our school-based clinics health education program running through the end of this year. Item number 5 is accepting a grant from Hennepin County in the amount of $5,000 for the Children's Mental Health Collaborative COVID-19 Provider Funder Relief. And item number 6 is accepting a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health in the amount of $90,516 to implement the Safer Sex Intervention Project. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda or items that anyone would like to pull off for further discussion? All right, I am not seeing any. I do just want to briefly pause and say thank you to Barb Kyle, the director of the school-based clinics, and her phenomenal team for their hard work with bringing in grant dollars to ensure that our young people are still getting access to healthcare even during COVID. So thank you very much. So with that, I will move approval of the consent agenda and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Gordon?
Aye.
Cano?
Aye.
Ellison? Palmisano?
Aye.
Fletcher?
Aye.
Chair Cunningham?
Aye.
And Councilmember Ellison?
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That carries, and the consent agenda is approved. Thank you again to all of our hardworking city staff who make these very important things, bring all of this work and make it happen for our city and our residents. Item number 7 is an update from our health department on COVID-19. I believe that our health commissioner, Gretchen Musicant, will be giving that presentation. Commissioner Musicant, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. So this is the first time we have done this presentation to this committee, and I understand that you'd like it on a monthly basis. So I'm going to do a little bit more historical than perhaps I'll do in future times, but also interested in hearing from you if I'm covering the right materials or if you'd like different kinds of content in the future. So I'll start with the first slide. Thank you. At this time, we have 11,345 confirmed cases in Minneapolis of COVID-19. 51% of those cases are people under 35 years old. And of that number, the number of cases among 18 to 22-year-olds has more than doubled between the end of August and the end of September. And this really coincides with young people coming back to the city for college. 65% of our cases are amongst the BIPOC communities, despite making up only 36% of the population. Folks we're doing contact tracing with are using the language, are needing a second language other than English. Predominantly, most of those are Spanish speaking, but another subset are Somali speaking. There were, so the number of cases, the number of deaths so far in Minneapolis, 248 of our Minneapolis residents have died. And 60% of those cases are amongst 75 years and older, people who are 75 years and older. We continue to have about 10.6% of the state total in terms of cases in Minneapolis, and 11.8% of the state total in terms of deaths. That's about the proportion we have had since the beginning of the outbreak. This graph shows a 7-day rolling average of new cases per 100,000 people from March until now. And the Minneapolis rolling average is currently at just a little over 15 cases per 100,000, whereas the state rate is over 17 cases per 100,000. So we are lower than the statewide rate. But both of these put us, both the state and the city are in the orange category, which is considered accelerated spread of COVID-19. The state's threshold for case growth, what they hope to achieve is 5 or fewer cases per 100,000 residents. So you can see that we are far from that goal. Being above that threshold really means that we need to be using additional caution in the strategies that we use in order to protect ourselves. All right, next slide, thank you. Another way that we look at COVID cases is by, especially through our contact tracing, we're able to understand from people, where do you think you were exposed to COVID-19? And you can see that in the blue bar with the big red circle around it, that's the percent of cases in the community where there are no known sources. And that community transmission with no known exposure is currently over 30%, which is an indication of widespread transmission. The state's threshold for community transmission with no known sources is 30%, so we are above the threshold that they hope to achieve. And earlier this month, Governor Walz noted that community transmission dropped to 20%, would need to drop to 20% before we could think about withdrawing social distancing guidances and capacity restrictions on indoor spaces and large group gatherings. So we are ways off from being at any kind of a threshold that would allow us to return to a life that we might remember before the pandemic. Next slide, please. So I'm going to spend the next few slides talking about the city response efforts. And many of these efforts are done with others, other departments across the city enterprise. So while I'm reporting on them, it's not reflective simply of the health department's work. Currently, we are conducting over 50 case investigations and contact follow-ups per day, and are going to be able to expand our capacity as we bring on some AmeriCorps volunteers, which will be about 20 additional staff that we are bringing on through the Minnesota AmeriCorps program. One other finding is that, as I mentioned, 30% of the calls that we're doing for contact tracing are in languages other than English. This is an increase from late in the summer where it was down in the 20%, but it's not as high as early in the pandemic when it was more in the 40-some percent. All right, next slide. Another area of work is developing educational materials, and with a outbreak such as we've had that's lasted now since March, there's a great deal of fatigue in terms of messaging, and so this is more important than ever. There's basic signage for businesses and multi-unit housing, but we need to be refreshing the message constantly in order to keep people thinking about what they need to do to protect themselves in a serious way. We've developed videos on wearing masks, on mental well-being, and on isolation and quarantine. And we are using social media and websites to promote our testing events. Next slide, please. We have put a lot of effort, intensive effort and staff time and resources into testing, providing no-cost COVID-19 testing opportunities across the city, especially for BIPOC and communities most affected by COVID-19. As you can see there, we have sponsored ourselves 17 events to date and have been able to test over 2,000 folks. We have also been offering flu shots with many of those testing events and have been able to get seasonal influenza shots for over 500 people. We are doing our testing in an environment where others are doing testing in Minneapolis as well. And so the state is sponsoring testing, the county is sponsoring testing, other partners, and so we are contributing and helping those events as well, and then sponsoring events where we feel the community still needs the testing that we can provide. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the yellow squares are the places where we have had some of those, or all of those testing events, so 17 testing events. And the neighborhoods with confirmed cases are colored in with the darker shades indicating the higher case counts. And so we are focusing our free testing events on areas where there is a high case count and a lack of other testing options available. These target areas often overlap with BIPOC and low-income communities. Next, please. We have also done a lot of distribution of personal protective equipment. Since the beginning of the outbreak, we've distributed over 800,000 masks. 171,000 of them have been cloth masks, 500 and some thousand have been surgical masks, and 130 some thousand have been N95s. We've also distributed over 5,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, and that ranges from the little personal ones to gallon size hand sanitizer. And early on, we had thermometers that are reusable that come in a little card, and we were able to distribute 6,000 of those as well. Next slide, please. So now we are really thinking forward and planning for the eventuality, we hope, of vaccination opportunities. We are developing a mass vaccination plan that we'll be sending to the state by November 30th, thinking through the logistics of what kind of spaces can we use, how do we keep the vaccine cold, how do we respond to the potential probability that there will be more than one vaccine, and that some vaccines you will have to take more than once, and you need to take those vaccines from the second dose from the same kind of vaccine as you had the first dose. So there's quite a bit of complexity that we are planning around, not knowing what the final details are, but trying to make sure that we have a plan that can respond to what those final details are. We're coordinating with partners across the metro area and with healthcare partners as well. We're also focusing in on speaking with the community and thinking and learning with the community as more details emerge around the vaccine. So our community conversations about COVID-19 vaccination are really listening sessions, coupled with a presentation about the status of the vaccine development and approval process. And out of these conversations, we can learn together and prepare people to speak to their communities about vaccines, because we know there will be a lot of questions that people have and some sense of trepidation with something new being offered. Next, please. We're also spending a fair amount of energy on addressing food insecurity, which became evident with the outbreak of COVID, but has been added to by the civil unrest that followed George Floyd's death. So we're supporting food shelves and pop-up food distribution sites as they look to sustain their efforts through the winter. A lot of them have been outside, and so we're really trying to look for appropriate indoor spaces that will allow for the physical distancing we need with COVID environment. We're also trying to make sure that folks are doing things in a food safety and a COVID safety way, and thinking about our permit applications so that we are formally involved with folks, but it isn't a burden to them. Next, please. So this is quite an interesting graphic. Research partners from the University of Minnesota Institute on the Environment created GIS maps showing changes in food access throughout the summer. The data on this graph show the number of free food distribution sites in Minneapolis decreased by half between June and September of this year, after a rapid increase following the civil unrest. As a result, the potential demand on the remaining sites has likely doubled. Some areas of the city have lost coverage altogether. Next slide, please. So this slide, I want to talk to you a little bit about the resources that we are using. Top of mind for us is the CARES funding that has come from the federal government through the state. And some of the ways that we have used our resources has been to partner with host community testing, host community organizations to for them to sponsor testing events. We are making sure that we are keeping good track of all of our staff time that has been invested in responding to COVID since March. The city has reported on our behalf that $938,000 was spent on staff time between March and July. So nearly $1 million of health department staff time between March and July. Between August and September, another $257,000 of staff time was spent on this. So if you can imagine what those dollars mean in terms of people time, there's been a tremendous diversion of our energies to make sure that we're responding and will continue to respond well into 2021. So we have been told by the state that we need to have expended and used and had any event that's paid for by CARES dollars occur before November 15th. The CARES money actually covers a period of time through December 31st, but the state needs to hear from us about our activities in order for them to reallocate any unspent dollars at the local level so that the state can spend those remaining dollars or reallocate them elsewhere. This is quite a burden because we know that there's nothing about November 15th and this virus that have any correlation. After the CARES funding expires, we will need financial support to continue community testing, although we're trying to make some investments now that will help us lean into that time. As I said, the messaging always needs to be refreshed, and we need to prepare for mass vaccination operations. I think the next slide would be good to have. So on the horizon, we're planning for large winter COVID testing events, trying to find some large venues and also think about how that will be financed. We are exploring establishing a rapid response testing team, a smaller capacity, but more mobile capacity so that we could go into communities that are having still a hard time accessing testing. And we continue to refresh our communication materials, and then we want to promote seasonal flu shots, and that's something that's not on the horizon. It's right now, and everybody should be thinking about getting their seasonal flu vaccination right now. So thank you. That is the end of my slides, and I will stand for any in-depth questions or surface questions, any kind of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Great presentation. I appreciate the in-depth nature of it, and definitely covered a lot of topics that I'm sure that the public will benefit from having that additional knowledge. I have Councilmember Fletcher in queue.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham, and thank you, Commissioner Musicamp, for this. It's a really helpful update, and I think there's several things that I just want to express appreciation for. One is the updated messaging, because I think that over time, as you said, people do stop paying attention to the signs that they've walked past every day. And also, I think a lot of rumors spread about, like, oh, I read a study that says you don't need to wear a mask in this kind of circumstance, or whatever. And so what I'm finding is that even among people who encounter each other, out on the street, I think people might have very different understandings that they all feel very confident about, that are contradictory about, do I need to be wearing a mask, or what kind of distance do I need to maintain from somebody in an outdoor setting versus an indoor setting, or in certain kinds of circumstances. And so I would just encourage, as much as possible, to continue putting out new messaging that just reinforces what the latest science says, that reinforces the messages that you're hearing that are the responsible public health messages, to help us all amplify them accurately, and to make sure that everybody's getting a chance to hear new messages, as they're coming out. So I want to express my appreciation for that. I want to acknowledge how frustrating it is that there is not federal help coming to the people who are experiencing food insecurity, and how deeply grateful I am that public health is digging in and making sure we have the infrastructure to continue addressing food insecurity and providing food for people who would otherwise be hungry, who are frankly being abandoned by our federal government right now. And it's upsetting to watch this fall on cities, and I know that a lot is falling on us and is falling on your department, and I want to really appreciate everybody's work on that front. I think the question that I probably get the most is about when can things kind of go back to normal, and obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but you are on a lot of calls with folks who know more about vaccine development than I do, and than I am, and I know we're seeing news, for example, that some major employers downtown are telling their employees that they're probably not coming back until June, and I think everybody's sort of making guesses about when they think. I know our budget sort of assumes fall is when things might sort of start to return back to normal rules. Is the budget assumptions that our finance department was kind of making. And so I guess I wanted to hear, given that nobody knows, there's probably not a right answer to this, but we do want to plan for it, because in addition to planning for vaccine distribution and all of the other things that will be involved in restarting, we need to plan for some real reactivation and some real public events around inviting people back and making downtown feel safe and welcoming and exciting in a way that encourages people to reactivate when it is safe to do that. And so as much guidance as you can provide us about timing and sort of where you think things are at, what you're hearing, would be super helpful.
Yeah, thanks for a great question, Councilmember Fletcher, Councilmember Cunningham, Chair Cunningham. While we wait for the vaccine, and I think our projections about a vaccine are really informed by the way that H1N1 rolled out almost a decade ago now. And that is when there's a vaccine available, that's not the same as having enough vaccine. And so the manufacturing of the vaccine in large quantities to reach the entire population takes a while. And so there will be certain folks that are prioritized. I believe some recommendations have come out nationally identifying first responders, people who work in hospitals, so that we have that infrastructure that is undergirded and strong and can protect all of us as we continue to spread the vaccine throughout the population, and then those at highest risk. So it will take months for us to move from those first folks that will have access to the vaccine to having a population that is fully able to access those vaccines. And then we need to make sure that people feel comfortable and confident about taking advantage of that protective opportunity, which I think does move us into summer or fall of 2021. Having said that, the strategies we have at hand with wearing masks to protect each other. So 2 people wearing masks, not just 1 person wearing a mask as we encounter one another. Social distancing, taking special precautions when we're indoors. Those efforts can bring that rate of community contagion down. And if there were less virus around and we were able to really follow people when they were exposed, oh, I went to this event or this party or this place, and follow up on all the people that might have been exposed at that place, we actually could be more out there than we are, but we are very far from that. We need to get that orange rate back way down, and then we can consider, and I think Governor Walz has said that, we can consider rolling back some of the constraints that we have placed upon ourselves. But to date, we're not moving necessarily quickly in the right direction.
Thank you, Councilmember Fletcher, and thank you, Commissioner, for that information. One of the things I really appreciate is discussing the plan for mass vaccinations, really putting that infrastructure in place. That was something that I was curious about as a council member, and wanting to, knowing that you know, we have a timeline for building out a plan, having some clarity around that. I'm just very grateful to you all for your foresight with that and really digging into it. I look forward to ongoing conversations. And I'm sorry, you may have mentioned this again, but I just want to clarify. You had said something about a less than 20% threshold to remove the distancing restrictions. I just wanted to confirm that, make sure I understood that.
Yeah, that is a comment or a statement made by our governor. I'm just going to look for my sheet so I can make sure that I am re-quoting it clearly. If you'll give me pause here. Yes. Governor Walz last month said that he would like to see the state's rate of unknown community transmission, which is now above 30%, drop to 20% before withdrawing social distancing guidance and capacity restrictions on indoor spaces and large group gatherings. That is one of the indicators that he has identified. I think another one is positivity rate. So of those getting tested, how many are positive? And then getting us, that chart that I showed you, getting us back out of the orange area to yellow and hopefully to green. So it's not just one indicator, but that is a statement he made about that indicator.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. Thank you for that. Has there been any sort of clarity around like what the thresholds are for removing the state of the declaration of emergency?
Chair Cunningham, I don't know of a particular indicator. I think again, he's weighing benchmark indicators, those 3 that I mentioned for sure, and there might be 1 or 2 others, and then weighing other considerations in our society and our economy as well.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I am not seeing any further questions or council members in the queue. Great information. I think having this first presentation help give us the background, lay a baseline so that we're able to track it from month to month, see how we're progressing, see the various resources that are needed and being utilized. That's going to be very informative for us as policymakers to be able to support you and your staff's efforts in keeping our city healthy. So thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you for all that you do, and please pass that gratitude along to your hardworking staff as well. Seeing no further discussion, I will direct the clerk to file that report. Thank you. And our last item, colleagues, on the agenda for today is item number 8, which is a resolution authorizing funding to support the city's community safety engagement efforts. I will ask the staff to present on this item. I'm not sure quite who is first up to kick us off.
Mr. Chair, this is Mark Ruff, City Coordinator. I'd be happy to kick off and then turn it over to our Health Commissioner.
Welcome, Mr. Ruff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham's member of the committee. This is Mark Ruff. I will just draw attention to the resolution that was in the packet and quickly walk through just the resolution and the ideas behind it. This resolution was guided by you, Chair Cunningham, as well as the Council President, Councilmember Fletcher, and other council members providing input on what are the needs for furthering this effort as quickly as possible. And so part of the resolution is removing some components of city processes that include the hiring freeze waiver process, which we do put departments through several hoops to get through proving that they need an exemption from that hiring freeze. So this would allow us to staff up as quickly as possible for those dedicated resources that the council has indicated. So we do have 2 positions that are in this resolution. One is fast forwarding a position for the Office of Violence Prevention that was proposed by the mayor in the 2021 budget. So we could actually hire this position as quickly as possible in 2020. And then an additional and that would be an ongoing position, meaning that it would be from year to year, not a temporary position. There would be a temporary position through the end of 2021 for the communications department that would be focused again around efforts on the Office of Violence Prevention and community safety engagement efforts. And so those 2 positions would be exempt from a hiring freeze process. In addition, we have in this resolution not just the salaries for those 2 positions in 2020, but also potentially $50,000 of contracting costs that would go along with the engagement efforts. Those contracting costs could be anything from translation services to graphics to other outside support that needs to be hired quickly. And so we are in this resolution exempting those contracts from the target market program and other bidding requirements that are in addition that the city layers on top of state law. And so those 2 components then do add up to a total of funding that is indicated at the bottom of the resolution of $110,000. Would be $25,000 specifically for the remainder of the year for the communications department position, and then $85,000, which is a combination of salary, and then approximately $35,000 of salary and $50,000 of contracting costs that would be allocated for these efforts. The council obviously will continue these discussions in November and December during the budget discussions for 2021, but this resolution gets us through the end of the year to make this happen as quickly as possible. So that's the financial side as well as the staffing side. I will say that this effort will take on, will require many more than just 2 positions. And I think we are aware that the Office of Violence Prevention itself is dedicating significant amount of time. In addition, we have our Neighborhood and Community Relations Department that is significantly dedicating time to supporting the health department in these efforts. We also have coordinator office staff who will be dedicated at least 75% of one position, and then several other folks who will be adding efforts around engagement and their continuing work around the other engagement processes related to the 911 work group. and then additional communication staff and IT staff as we more focus our web presence for these efforts as well. And so those are not mentioned specifically in the resolution, but can assure you that this is a top priority for all of the coordinator departments that support the health department and our other departments involved in community safety. So, Mr. Chair, that's all I have for right now. Happy to answer questions or turn it over to our health commissioner.
I don't see any questions yet. Thank you so much, Mr. Ruff. And Commissioner Musikant, welcome back.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. I think Mr. Ruff really covered the basics of the resolution. We really appreciate any steps that can be taken to help us speed up our planning for community engagement, because we know that there's urgency both by the council members and certainly the public to have a transparent engagement process that they can see and understand, and that we can make sure that we're collecting the kinds of input that the community has to offer. And so this will allow us to expedite some of the support changes we need in terms of staffing and contracting to get that done.
Great. Thank you so much to the both of you. For the general public, these sort of issues and actions that the city council takes might not seem very flashy or big, but this is very important from a governing perspective, that we have a strong infrastructure in place within the city to implement the various components of work, like the community engagement, to be able to do the data analysis, and to be able to develop the new plans and the proposals and the recommendations. That takes staff time. That takes people doing that work. And when you are doing different work that has not existed historically in the city, that infrastructure is not inherently in place. And so we have to intentionally do that. This has been a lot of work to make this happen. So I'm very grateful to everyone involved for us to be able to come to this solution, to be able to actually get us to where we need to be, so that we can actually implement this work, which is a top priority for the present and the future of the safety of our city. With that, I believe that I think that, so are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I have a hard time. I will be supporting this resolution today, but I have a real hard time doing so because I need to point out that the point in time that we agreed that we would lead a year-long process of community engagement was June 12th. This is a resolution that waives, that changes our city budget. I'm the budget committee chair and no one has spoken with me about this. No one. It waives our hiring freeze, like Coordinator Ruff said. It also waives our ability and our need to abide by our own rules of equity imposed upon our city for our target market program. It waives our standard review process for RFPs. I mean, this is important. And for me, the only answer that I've gotten back to date is that, well, if you have a better solution, go for it. I mean, 4 months later, after we've agreed to do this, I am pleased, and I thank my colleagues for their work in coming up with how we might resource something like this, but I think that we really need to work together in developing a solution. And after 4 months to have this as our way to move forward, I sure hope that we have resourced it enough and that it's going to, because nobody has brought me into that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. We have Council President Bender on the line. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm calling from phone. I'm not on this committee, but wanted to be here for this item. And just want to thank you and Councilmember Fletcher for all of the work, as we talked about during the last committee meeting, where the committee and then the council approved the community engagement and decision-making timeline, as well as at council, we've mentioned many times publicly and to our colleagues that there was quite a lot of issues to resolve with how to staff this work. And I did text Councilmember Palmisano on Friday and called on Tuesday. We are going to need council members to really step up in partnership on this. I've dropped everything for 5 weeks to work with staff to break through many, many, many barriers for staffing this work. There was a lot of concerns raised, as we saw publicly many months ago, and I'm probably at the top of the list of frustration about how long this has all taken to come together. But you know, the crux of it, as the chair said, was that our staff are really stretched thin. It's partly why I'm glad we're having this presentation about the CARES Act funding coming up at POGO, because we hear from staff basically every day complaints about how much their time is being stretched with the pandemic, the economic crisis, the social unrest, the death of George Floyd, and all of the really demands from our community to do a better job of engaging about the public safety issues that are before us. So this work is really imperative. And we've heard loud and clear from our staff that we need to be able to shift time and resources to accomplish this. I've worked closely with the mayor's office and Mayor Fry, along with the chair and vice chair, to really work to be able to support staff in this way. So, I know that if there are specific questions, the authors can answer them, but wanted to, again, just thank the coordinator's office and the health department, as well as the chair and vice chair, for many, many hours of time that has gone into figuring out how to staff this. I wish that time, some of it had been spent, actually engaging and starting to have this conversation and doing the tasks that need to do, but laying that groundwork will mean that going forward, we won't have to use, a part of 30 different staff people's time, that this will have the dedicated staff and resources it needs to be successful. So later than I would have liked, but at this point, I guess better late than never, to really have a good, solid staffing plan in place. This kind of staffing decisions doesn't necessarily typically come before the council. This one does have some budget components to it that need council approval. And I think it does actually reflect some of the challenges that we have with our current department structure when it comes to community safety. We don't have an obvious landing place within the enterprise for this work, but the health department has a long history of working on violence prevention and a health-based approach to community safety. And then we'll have a strong partnership with the coordinator's office, who's been working on the 911 MPD work group. Of course, that's where NCR and communications and finance and all the other departments involved are located as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you so much for your due diligence and your time in helping for us to break through the barriers that were presented. So thank you, and thank you for your leadership. Next up, we have Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. Council President Bender said a lot of what I wanted to say, but I do just want to recognize how much work went into this. And I think this resolution really reflects, it kind of started off as 2 resolutions, and I actually said it in council last week that I was going to bring the financial component of this, which was, but I think this really reflects 2 ideas, and it reflects, first, a lot of work that happened by a lot of different departments and a lot of different staff, and by Council President Bender and Councilmember Cunningham in particular. So I want to really recognize the work that a lot of people put in to figuring out how this was going to work in a moment when everybody's stretched. And I will say that the health department stepped up in a big way. The coordinator's office has stepped up and contributed ideas and resources, and the mayor's office is contributing resources. And so this is a great example of all of us working together. It is kind of coming together the way we would want it to be. And I think that there is the challenge of keeping everybody in the loop and figuring out how to have everybody know as much as we would want them to know when we're all working remotely, and recognize the challenges of that, but I think it's very important that we've gotten to this point. And then the financial component of this is non-traditional. It is not something that we want to do in every situation, and it reflects the extreme urgency and priority that I think we've heard from the community. Everybody wants us to be putting on this. We heard it from many of the people who testified earlier in public comment this afternoon, that there's a real impatience to get a real public process going around community engagement to really get to a vision of what public safety looks like that's really going to work for everybody. And I think this is such critical work that we wanted to predict what the next barriers and delays would be, knowing that it took us 4 months to get here and it shouldn't have. And we're frustrated by that, and everybody's impatient. I'm certainly impatient. And so I approach this work saying, you know, what can we do to knock down the next barrier preemptively so that we don't run into now we're in a 6-week process around taking the next step. That's really what this resolution is intended to do. So I'm happy to be bringing it forward and excited to get the community engagement out of the talking about how we're going to do it phase and into the talking with the public about how we're going to do public safety phase, which is really what.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fletcher. And again, thank you for all your work and your foresight in wanting to address the barriers that very likely would have come forward without this resolution. So thank you very much. I also just want to reiterate that this isn't jazzy. It isn't a headline of excitement of, yay, the city's got staff for this. But what we're talking about here is co-creating new systems of public safety that expand our approach to public safety in a way that's rooted in public health. And co-creation is a time and labor intensive process for us to be able to actually genuinely listen to community and build the work from there, rather than the city saying we are going to do this thing, and so doing top down, but instead working with community and governing from the ground up. So it's very important for us to actually have people who are dedicated to this. This is not the kind of thing where a whole bunch of people can spend a little bit of time on it. We need folks who are focused on it, who have the skill sets to be able to facilitate such a complex process, a process that brings up a lot of emotions and trauma. And I think that we have phenomenal city staff between NCR, the folks in the coordinator's office, the folks who are being brought into this process. We have some really great folks that I'm very excited that we have been able to support their process in creating enough space for them to focus on this huge priority of work. So, so thank you to everybody involved. Councilmember Palmisano is back in queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important that we all give each other the benefit of the doubt here, which I plan to do today. But I do really begrudge the idea, as mentioned by one of my colleagues, by the council president, that a missed call is reaching out. Maybe the 4-month delay in getting to this point is what happens when we consider a missed call without a voicemail, without an attempt to schedule time together, working together. And emailing a draft would have been an effective way to reach the budget chair, setting up time, which I've always make for my colleagues, and I appreciate those who make it for me, is an important part of being together. I desperately want to be working together as a city in this moment, but it makes me really skeptical of your talk about co-creation when you're not involving other people on the council. That's all.
That particular point is most likely better made offline, so we can talk about how to be able to better facilitate engagement amongst all of our colleagues as we divide it up and are being careful to also follow open meeting laws as well. So with that, no one else is in queue. So with that, I'll move approval of this item. Is there any further discussion? All right. Okay. Councilmember Palmisano, I think
Just one question,
back.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You reached out to our budget director at all about the change in the contingency budget for this resolution?
I will, the particular financial components, actually, Councilmember Fletcher, if you are able to answer that. I focused on the staffing component and he worked on the financial component. Councilmember Fletcher, do you have an answer for that? Please.
Certainly. So Director Intermill was out last week, but I worked directly with Mark Ruff on the financial details.
Thank you. I do appreciate it when we are amending the adopted city budget, though, to make sure that we are reaching out to our budget office. And I do understand from our budget office that no one there was reached out to, which is perhaps another reason why I was not aware of this. So please, let's be mindful of that in the future.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I will move, I already moved approval of this item, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll on item number 8.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Cano. Councilmember Cano. Ellison.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Fletcher.
Aye.
Chair Cunningham.
Aye.
And Councilmember Cano. There are 5 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, and so that carries, and that recommendation will be referred to the City Council meeting next Friday for final action. Again, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody, for my colleagues for this long meeting. Thank you for being here, being present. Thank you to all of the community members who took time out of their day to participate in the public comment period, to all of the staff who work incredibly hard on behalf of the residents of our city. We are very lucky to have you, your leadership, your expertise here in the city as an organization and as a place to live and to work. So thank you, everybody. Seeing no further business before us and with no objection, I declare this meeting adjourned.